Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at AI and data labeling. And this one actually came from one of you. Our listeners sent in this really interesting article from AI Times about this company called DeepSeek.
Oh yeah, DeepSeek. They've been making a lot of headlines lately, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. Their new AI model, this O1, is really shaking things up. People are even saying it's affecting NVIDIA's stock price.
It's definitely causing a stir, and for good reason. What they're doing with O1 is pretty revolutionary.
So let's break this down for our listeners. What exactly is DeepSeek doing that's got everyone so excited?
Well, the key is how they're training their AI models. They've developed this method called distillation. It's where they basically create a smaller, more efficient AI model by training it using the manage of a much larger one. Think of it like creating a mini-me version of a supercomputer.
A mini-me AI. That's a pretty cool image. So this smaller AI model, what's so special about it?
This is where it gets really interesting. This smaller model can actually generate its own training data.
It can create its own data.
Exactly. It's called synthetic data. It's like the AI is creating its own study guide to learn from.
Oh, hold on. I need to make sure I'm following this. So instead of relying on humans to label all the data, this AI can just create its own data and learn from that.
That's the idea. And it's a potential game changer because, as you know, the traditional way of training AI models has relied heavily on data labeled by humans.
Right. And that whole data labeling process is a massive undertaking. We've talked before about companies like Scale AI. They employ tons of people, sometimes even people with PhDs, just to label data and make sure the AI is learning correctly.
Exactly. Data labeling is a huge part of AI development. And it's not always easy or cheap, and that's why DeepSeek's approach with synthetic data is causing such a buzz.
So the big question is, could this synthetic data actually reduce our reliance on human data labelers?
That's the million-dollar question, and honestly, there's no easy answer. The article you sent in highlights some pretty strong opinions on both sides of the argument.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like one of those classic AI debates. Will machines replace humans?
Exactly. You've got people like Manu Sharma, the CEO of Labelbox, who believes that DeepSeek's technology could automate a lot of the simpler tasks currently done by human labelers, especially in areas like coding and math.
So he's seeing it as a way to free up human labelers to focus on more complex tasks.
Right. But then you have someone like Alexander Wang, the CEO of Scale AI, who's not so convinced. He argues that even DeepSeek's model is built on a foundation of data that was initially generated and labeled by humans.
So he's saying we can't just dismiss the human element entirely.
Exactly. He calls it a lazy view to assume that DeepSeek has somehow completely automated the data generation process.
That makes sense. I mean, how do you teach an AI about something like the nuances of human language or the complexities of medical images without having humans involved at some point?
Exactly. There are certain things that AI just can't learn without human input, at least not yet.
So where does that leave us? Is DeepSeek's synthetic data approach all hype, or is there real substance to it?
Well, I think it's important to remember that AI and the way we train AI models is constantly evolving.
Right. So what we're groundbreaking today might be old news tomorrow.
Exactly. And I think DeepSeek has achieved some impressive results with their approach to synthetic data. But it's not necessarily a simple case of humans versus machines. I think it's more about finding ways for humans and AI to work together.
Collaboration, not competition.
Right. And that brings us to a really important question that we need to consider. If AI can increasingly create its own training data, how will that impact the jobs of those currently working as data labelers?
That's a big one. Will it lead to job losses, or will it create new opportunities?
It's tough to say for sure, but I think it's likely that we'll see a shift in the types of tasks that data labelers are doing. The AI Times article even mentions how some data labelers are now being referred to as model trainers, or AI content adjusters.
So instead of simply labeling data, they might be responsible for things like verifying the quality of the synthetic data or training the AI models on more specialized tasks.
Exactly. It's an evolving field, and the roles within it are evolving too.
So it seems like the future of data labeling might not be about humans versus AIs, but rather about humans and AI working together in new and innovative ways.
That's a great way to put it, and that's something we're going to explore further in our next deep dive.
Awesome. I'm already looking forward to it. But before we move on to the next part, I think it's important to acknowledge that DeepSeek is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The AI landscape is vast, and there are a lot of other exciting developments happening.
You're absolutely right. DeepSeek's making a lot of noise right now, but they're not the only ones pushing the boundaries of AI.
So what else should our listeners be paying attention to? What other trends are shaping the AI world right now?
Well, one trend that I find particularly fascinating is the rise of what's called federated learning. Have you heard of that?
Federated learning. That rings a bell, but I could definitely use a refresher.
Okay, so imagine you have multiple AI models, each trained on data from different sources, Like you might have one model trained on data from hospitals in Europe, another one trained on data from hospitals in Asia, and so on.
Okay, I'm picturing like a global network of AI models.
Exactly. And federated learning allows these models to share their knowledge and learn from each other without actually sharing the underlying data.
Wait, so they can learn from each other without actually sharing the data. How does that work?
That's the beauty of it. It's all about sharing insights, not raw data. It's like a group of students studying together, but each student keeps their own notes private.
Ah, I get it. So it's like they're comparing their study strategies and learning from each other's approaches, but they're not actually sharing their notes.
That's a great analogy. And this is really important for privacy reasons, especially when you're dealing with sensitive data, like in healthcare.
Right. You don't want all that patient data floating around in some central database.
Exactly. So federated learning allows these AI models to improve their accuracy and performance without compromising patient privacy.
That's really cool. So instead of having one giant AI model trained on all the data in the world, you have these smaller specialized models that can collaborate and learn from each other.
It's like a distributed intelligence network, and it's a trend that's gaining a lot of momentum, especially in areas where data privacy is a major concern.
So federated learning, one big trend to watch. What else is shaking things up in the AI world?
Well, another trend that I find really interesting is the move towards more specialized AI models.
Specialized AI models. What do you mean by that?
So in the past, there was this idea that we needed to create one giant, all-powerful AI model that could do everything.
Like a jack of all trades AI.
Right. But now we're seeing a shift towards developing AI models that are specifically designed to excel at very specific tasks.
So instead of trying to create one AI to rule them all, we're creating specialized AI experts.
Exactly. You might have one AI model that's specifically designed for medical image analysis, another for natural language processing, another for financial forecasting, and so on.
Kind of like how in the medical field you have specialists for different parts of the body.
That's a great analogy. And this specialization allows these AI models to become incredibly accurate and efficient at what they do.
So it's about playing to AI's strengths and focusing its power on specific areas.
Exactly. And this trend towards specialization is really starting to take off.
Okay, so federated learning and the rise of specialized AI models. Two big trends to keep an eye on. What else is on the horizon?
Well, another trend that I think is worth mentioning is the increasing focus on what's called explainable AI.
Explainable AI. Haven't heard that one before. Tell me more.
So traditionally, a lot of AI models have been kind of like black boxes. You feed in data, the model spits out an answer, but you don't really know how it got there.
Right. It's like, okay, AI, you say this is the answer, but show your work. How did you arrive at that conclusion?
Exactly. And that lack of transparency can be a problem, especially in areas like healthcare or finance, where trust and accountability are really important.
It's hard to trust something if you don't understand how it works.
Right. So explainable AI is all about making the decision-making process of AI models more transparent and understandable to humans.
So it's like being able to lift the hood on the AI and see how the engine works.
You got it. Researchers are developing techniques that allow AI models to explain their reasoning, to highlight the factors that influence their decisions, and to provide insights into how they arrived at their conclusions.
That makes a lot of sense. If we're going to rely on AI to make important decisions, we need to be able to understand how those decisions are being made. It's all about building trust.
Exactly. And this focus on explainable AI is likely to become even more important as AI becomes more integrated into our lives.
So explain the AI, another trend to add to the list. This is all really fascinating stuff. But before we move on to the next part, I want to shift gears for a second and talk about what's happening in the data labeling space itself. Are there any new techniques or approaches emerging that are changing the game?
Oh, absolutely. There are a lot of really cool developments happening in data labeling. One technique that's gaining a lot of traction is called active learning.
Active learning. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So in traditional data labeling, you typically have this large data set that needs to be labeled, and you might just start labeling it randomly or sequentially.
Right, just working your way through the data one item at a time.
Exactly. But with active learning, the AI model actually helps to guide the data labeling process.
Wait, the AI is helping to label the data?
Not exactly. It's more like the AI is pointing the human labelers towards the data points that are the most valuable to label.
Ah, so it's like the AI is saying, hey, if you really want to help me learn, focus on labeling these specific data points first.
Exactly. And this can significantly reduce the amount of data that needs to be labeled, which can save a lot of time and resources.
That's really smart. It's like having a super efficient to-do list for data labeling.
You got it. And this active learning approach is becoming increasingly popular because it makes the data labeling process so much more efficient.
Okay, active learning, definitely something to keep an eye on. Are there any other game-changing techniques emerging in data labeling?
Well, another approach that's really interesting is the use of what are called weakly supervised learning techniques.
Weakly supervised learning. That one's new to me. What's that all about?
So with traditional supervised learning, you need a data set where every single data point is accurately labeled. But in the real world, getting that level of perfect labeling can be really difficult and expensive.
Right. It's not always easy to get perfectly labeled data for everything.
Exactly. And that's where weakly supervised learning comes in. It allows you to train AI models using data that's only partially labeled, or where the labels might be a bit noisy or inaccurate.
So it's like being able to learn from a textbook where some of the answers in the back might be wrong.
That's a great analogy. And these weakly supervised learning techniques are becoming increasingly important because they allow us to leverage vast amounts of data that might not be perfectly labeled.
It's like embracing the messiness of the real world.
Exactly. And these techniques are getting more and more sophisticated, allowing AI models to learn effectively even from imperfect data.
So active learning and weakly supervised learning, two really interesting developments in the world of data labeling. It seems like there's a lot of innovation happening in this space.
Oh, absolutely. And there's even more to talk about, but I think we'll save that for our next deep dive.
Sounds good. I'm already looking forward to part 2. But before we wrap up this part, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the fast-paced nature of AI.
Right. It's a field that's constantly evolving.
So even though we've been talking a lot about DeepSeek and their synthetic data approach, it's important to remember that they're just one player in a much larger game.
Exactly. What's groundbreaking today might be obsolete tomorrow.
So the key is to stay informed, to be critical of the hype, and to focus on understanding the underlying principles of AI.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So before we get too deep into the weeds with any one company or technology, I think it's time to take a step back and look at the bigger picture.
I agree. Let's broaden our perspective.
Okay, so what else is happening out there in the world of AI? What other trends and innovations should our listeners be aware of?
Well, one area that's generating a lot of excitement right now is one area that's really heating up is it's called generative AI.
Generative AI. Okay, I've heard that term thrown around a lot lately, but I'm not entirely sure what it means.
So basically, generative AI refers to AI models that can create new content. Things like text, images, music, even code.
So it's AI that can actually create things. That's wild.
Right. It's pretty mind-blowing, and it's one of the fastest growing areas of AI research and development right now.
So how does generative AI actually work? What's the magic behind it?
Well, there are different techniques, but a lot of it is based on these things called generative adversarial networks, or GANs for short.
GANs, that sounds intense.
It is pretty complex stuff. But basically, GANs involve two AI models that work together. One model, the generator, creates new content, and the other model, the discriminator, tries to judge whether the content is real or fake.
Oh, so it's like a constant back and forth between these two AI models.
Exactly. The generator is trying to fool the discriminator, and the discriminator is trying to catch the generator in the act. And through this process, both models get better and better.
So it's like an AI arms race.
Kind of. And the result is that the generator becomes incredibly good at creating realistic and creative content.
That's pretty incredible. So what are some of the real-world applications of generative AI? Like, what can we actually do with this technology?
Oh, the possibilities are endless. We're already seeing generative AI being used in all sorts of fields. Like in marketing, it can be used to create personalized ads and content. In entertainment, it can be used to generate special effects and even write scripts. And in design, it can be used to come up with new product designs and architectural plans.
So it's like having an AI creative partner.
Exactly. And in many cases, generative AI can produce results that are just as good as or even better than what humans can create.
That's both exciting and a little bit scary at the same time.
Right. It definitely raises a lot of questions about the future of creativity and the role of humans in a world where AI can generate so much content.
No kidding. Okay, so generative AI is definitely something to keep an eye on. It sounds like it has the potential to revolutionize a lot of industries.
I think so. But it's also important to remember that generative AI is still in its early stages of development. And there are definitely some ethical considerations that we need to be thinking about.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like what happens when AI can create content that's indistinguishable from human-created content? How do we deal with issues like copyright and authenticity?
Those are all valid concerns, and there are no easy answers. But I think it's important to have these conversations now before this technology becomes even more widespread.
Definitely. So before we get too deep into the ethics rabbit hole, let's move on to another trend that you mentioned earlier. You were talking about their AI is becoming more specialized.
Right. So instead of trying to create one AI model that can do everything, We're now seeing a trend towards developing AI models that are specifically designed to excel at very specific tasks.
So it's like moving away from the idea of a general-purpose AI and towards more specialized AI experts.
Exactly. It's like in the medical field. You go to a cardiologist for your heart, a dermatologist for your skin, and so on. You wouldn't go to a general practitioner for everything.
Makes sense. So what are some examples of these specialized AI models?
Well, we're seeing specialized AI being used in all sorts of areas. Like in healthcare, you have AI models that are specifically designed to analyze medical images or to assist with diagnoses. In finance, you have AI models that can detect fraud or predict stock prices. And in manufacturing, you have AI models that can control robots or optimize production processes.
So it's like AI is becoming more integrated into specific industries and workflows.
Exactly. And this trend towards specialization is really starting to take off because it allows us to create AI solutions that are more targeted and effective.
So it's about finding the right AI tool for the right job.
Precisely. And as AI continues to evolve, I think we're going to see even more specialization in the future.
Okay, so we've got generative AI and specialized AI, two pretty big trends that are shaping the AI landscape. What else is on the horizon?
Well, another trend that I think is worth paying attention to is the increasing focus on what's called edge AI.
Edge AI. Okay, I'm not familiar with that one. Fill me in.
So traditionally, a lot of AI processing has been done in the cloud on these massive servers. But with edge AI, the AI processing is moved closer to the source of the data.
So instead of sending data to the cloud to be processed by AI, the AI is actually running on devices at the edge of the network.
Exactly, like on smartphones or sensors or even on self-driving cars.
So it's like bringing the AI to the data instead of bringing the data to the AI.
You got it. And this has a lot of advantages, like it can reduce latency, improve privacy, and make AI applications more reliable.
Makes sense. So if the AI is running locally on the device, it doesn't have to wait for data to be sent back and forth to the cloud.
Right. And it also means that the data doesn't have to leave the device, which can be a big plus for privacy-sensitive applications.
Okay, so Edge AI, it's all about bringing AI closer to the action. It sounds like that could have a big impact on how we use AI in the future.
Definitely. And we're already seeing Edge AI being used in all sorts of applications, like in smart home security systems and even in healthcare.
So it's a trend that's already starting to make its mark.
Absolutely. And I think it's only going to become more important in the years to come.
Okay, so we've got generative AI, specialized AI, and Edge AI. Three pretty big trends that are shaping the AI landscape. What else is on your radar?
Well, another trend that I think is worth mentioning is the growing importance of something called AI ethics.
AI ethics. Okay, that sounds pretty serious.
It is. As AI becomes more powerful and more integrated into our lives, it's becoming increasingly important to consider the ethical implications of this technology.
Like, what kind of ethical implications are we talking about?
Well, there are a lot of issues to consider. Like, for example, how do we ensure that AI is used fairly and responsibly? How do we prevent AI from being biased against certain groups of people? And how do we make sure that AI is used in a way that benefits society as a whole?
Those are all really important questions. It sounds like AI ethics is something that we need to be thinking about very carefully.
I agree. And it's not just the responsibility of AI researchers and developers. It's something that we all need to be engaged in.
So it's not just about building AI, it's about building AI that's ethical and responsible.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important message to leave our listeners with.
Okay, so generative AI, specialized AI, edge AI, and AI ethics. It sounds like the AI landscape is pretty complex and constantly evolving.
It definitely is. And that's why it's so important to stay informed and to keep learning.
Well said. So with that in mind, I think it's time to move on to our final deep dive, where we're going to explore some of the challenges and opportunities that AI presents for the future of work.
Sounds good. I'm ready to dive in. So we talked about a lot of exciting developments in AI, things like generative AI and edge AI and specialized AI. But now I think it's time to get real and talk about what all this means for us humans.
Right. It's all well and good to talk about the cool things that AI can do. But at the end of the day, the question on everyone's mind is, how is this going to affect our jobs?
Exactly. And it's a question that's been debated for years. Will AI create more jobs or will it destroy them? And honestly, I think the answer is probably a bit of both.
A bit of both. So you're saying AI will both create and destroy jobs?
Yeah, I think that's the most likely scenario. Some jobs will definitely be automated as AI becomes more capable. But at the same time, AI will also create new opportunities and new types of jobs that we can't even imagine yet.
So it's not just a simple case of robots taking over.
No, not at all. It's more nuanced than that. I think the key is to be adaptable, to be willing to learn new skills, and to embrace the changes that are coming.
So it's about being prepared for the future of work.
Exactly. And I think there are a few things that we can all do to prepare. Like, for one, we need to focus on developing skills that are uniquely human skills that AI can't easily replicate.
Like what kind of skills are we talking about?
Well, things like creativity, critical thinking, problem-solving, emotional intelligence, communication skills, these are all skills that are going to be in high demand in an AI-powered world.
Those are all soft skills, right? The kind of skills that robots aren't very good at yet.
Exactly. And I think another important thing is to be lifelong learners. The world is changing so rapidly that we need to be constantly updating our skills and knowledge.
So it's not enough to just get a degree and then coast for the rest of your career.
No, definitely not. The days of learning one skill and doing the same job for 40 years are over. We need to be adaptable and willing to learn new things throughout our lives.
So basically, the future of work is all about being flexible and embracing change.
Pretty much. And I think that could be both exciting and daunting at the same time.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like we're standing on the edge of a new frontier. We don't know exactly what the future holds, but we know it's going to be different.
And that's okay. I think it's important to embrace the unknown and to be open to new possibilities.
So let's say you're listening to this and you're feeling a little bit anxious about the future of work. What advice would you give?
Well, I would say don't panic. Change can be scary, but it can also be an opportunity to learn and grow and to create a better future for yourself. So be proactive. Take some time to think about your skills and interests and how you can apply them in an AI-powered world.
That's good advice. So it's not just about waiting to see what happens. It's about taking control of your own destiny.
Exactly. And remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something that we create. So let's create a future where AI empowers us to do more, to be more, and to live more fulfilling lives.
That's a great message to end on. So, listener, if you're feeling inspired to learn more about AI and the future of work, there are tons of resources available online and in your local community.
And don't be afraid to reach out to experts in the field, ask questions, and get involved in the conversation. The more we all learn about AI, the better equipped we'll be to shape its future.
Well said. This has been an amazing deep dive. I've learned so much, and I want to thank you, our listener, for sending in that thought-provoking article about DeepSeek. It really sparked some important conversations about AI and data labeling and the future of work.
And thank you to our expert for sharing your insights and expertise. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep exploring the fascinating world of AI.